everybody. I am joining you from New York. That was from bag right there is from the Madison, Madison Square Park Lego store. Don't tell my son. I hope he's not watching. But I'm excited to be joining us today for Atrium's AI Day Part 2, right? AI Day 2. Super pumped to be sharing with you all what we've been working on with respect to AI-driven sales management assistance. Um, and we're going to get into that right now because we got a lot to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We're going to do the Hall of Mirrors thing. Okay, wonderful. So thanks for joining us, folks. My name is Pete Kazanji. I'm one of the founders here at Atrium. My co-founder, Jason, is here as well, insofar as he's going to be doing a handy dandy demo for you guys here in a sec. But over the next 30 minutes, these are the things that we're going to cover. Mainly what we're going to be talking about is uh, generative AI as relates to sales management assistant, and Atrium sales coach with our friend here, Kit 3000, the AI version of our friendly neighborhood fox mascot. So these are the things that we're going to be covering. We're going to do a recap of like what we've been trying to prove, or kind of what our hypothesis was over the last quarter or so, as relates to AI and sales management. Kind of cover what we've done so far. A little review of how the market has been reacting, what our customers have been saying, what the analysts have been saying, and then we're going to talk a little bit about announcements, kind of new functionality that we've been shipping, that we're super pumped about. Jason's going to do a live demo for us, and then we're going to talk about next steps. So we should get through this in about 30 minutes or so and get you on with the rest of your day. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and review what was it that we were trying to prove? Like, what was the hypothesis as relates to AI and sales management, or as we're calling it, AI sales management. And really what it kind of comes down to is like, this is something that Atrium's been working on for 5 or 6 years, around how can you use data to better measure, manage, and improve performance at the rep level, at the team level, at the organization level. And really what it comes down to is like this top of the pyramid here. This is our data-driven sales management hierarchy of maturity here. Really what you have to do in order to be successful is you have to know what metrics to track, collect relevant data, build the relevant reporting, and then set goals to monitor on that. But the biggest thing really is this up here. All right, you got to visually monitor. Like if you do these things right here, you got to visually monitor and identify issues in the metrics, and then you got to diagnose and communicate the issues for resolution there. So like, and it's really this thing at the top of the pyramid that is the most important thing. Spoiler alert, it also happens to be the hardest thing to do as well. And so this is why what you kind of see here is organizations struggling to do this with what we call kind of horizontal analytics solutions. So walls of charts that are kind of like eye charts, if you will. And so this is the traditional way that organizations have tried to solve this. They've struggled to do so. This kind of this little comic right here in the lower right hand corner kind of elucidates this, like, hey, our dashboard has all the KPIs on it. It's amazing. Oh, what's that KPI trending to zero? It's how well we understand them. Because we keep adding them. And so, Atrium first tried to solve this problem doing what we kind of statistical anomaly detection. So what we kind of call pre-digested math. So tracking movements in those metrics, individuals as compared to their peers in the organization, teams as compared to other teams like them, trends, things like that. But even that, even though it kind of like moved the ball down the field towards the end zone, it didn't necessarily get it all the way into the end zone for a lot of folks. And so when large language model AI came out, gosh, kind of around a year ago now, I think ChatGPT came out, and people really started understanding how large language models could potentially impact these workflows. What we kind of had a hypothesis that large language model AI could potentially help with this, and so it turns out that we thought that it could. And the way that large, just to kind of give like a kind of mini TED talk for folks here on how this works, large language model AI, the way that it works is by tracking kind of the meaning of text and relationships between them by kind of ingesting and mapping relationships between words across large corpuses of text, primarily the internet. And so what that means for sales is something like, in across the entire internet and in like the entire corpus of like YouTube videos and like podcasts, whatever, the word sales occurs very frequently with the word rep. Right? And the word rep occurs very frequently with the word meetings. And the word meetings occurs very frequently with the word more. And the word more occurs very frequently with the words better and good. And so insofar as across trillions and trillions of pages of text, this ends up being the case again and again and again. These large language models know that in the context of sales, more meetings is generally good, right? That's how meaning is created in large language models. And so based on the above, what we kind of found, or what our hypothesis was, is that GPT-4 and kind of other large language models kind of could know sales pretty okay, and as a result could provide synthesis and recommended actions, right? They can make sense of things and provide recommended actions. And so a good example of this would be in the context of sales management. If a rep is sending more emails, touching more accounts, and making more calls, the synthesized outcome of that would be, oh, this account executive is working harder, right? That's a synthesized judgment. You, their manager, should give them a high five. That's a recommended action. And so that was the hypothesis. And so it turns out that, like, based on what we've seen over the last 3, 4, 5 months, this thesis is largely correct. And the reason why is because we shipped this in Atrium's sales coach functionality. And so there's kind of like the two big things that we have been investing in to date with Atrium and large language models is essentially the synthesis and this recommendation here, like what's going on with this rep, what's going on with this team, how are we doing on our key initiatives, and by the way, what should I do about it, right? And so this is what this looked like over the last 3 or 4 months. So we started with like single metrics here. This metric right here and this insight, the statistical insight, was what Atrium kind of understood as already knew. Like, hey, look, this person has more stock opportunities than usual. That's like a fact that Atrium knew. This is the AI driven synthesis and recommendation on it. It started pretty basic with a single metrics, and you can kind of see right here, we got a couple of recommendations like, hey, maybe this rep needs to refocus on lead prioritization. Maybe you need to talk with them about how they're doing opportunity tracking, et cetera, et cetera. So started pretty basic. Then it got smarter. Right, so we added AI to our strategy insights, or kind of our combinations of metrics that are moving together. And again, it got smarter. Where things got really excited was when we started throwing even more data at the AI. So for instance, taking everything that's going on with a given rep, right? Like all of their active anomalies for them, um, and handing that to the AI and saying, hey, what's going on here and what should we do about it? And so this is where this work right here for humans can be a little bit harder. There can be a number of things going on with a rep. There could be 4 things, 6, 8, 10, who knows, going on with rep. It could be a lot of tea leaves to read. And this is where AI got really exciting as relates to sales coach, was synthesizing all of that for a given rep and telling us what to do about it. So then we realized, well, heck, if we can do this for a single rep, that's all well and good. And that really helps our AE manager, SDR manager customers. But the problem is that they've got 6 AEs that report to them, and they got 8 SDRs that report to them. What are we going to do about that? And so that's where we said, hey, we can take all of the information as associated with a team, and we can synthesize that across using AI as well, and do things like, hey, what are the top items for coaching, not just for this rep, but across the entire team? Like, what are the biggest themes that I should be dealing with? What should the plan of action be that I should tackle there? What are the reps that I should maybe be keeping an eye on here, and why? Like, what's their issues? Who are the reps I should be giving fist bumps to and encouraging? What are the pervasive patterns across the team? Right? And this is where things got even more and more powerful. Um, we realized that coaching is impactful, but also looking for opportunities for encouragement and reinforcement. Using positive, like looking only at the positives, was also something that our customers really liked as well. So we shipped positive only sales coach. What we also realized is that we could talk, like we use the AI to talk directly to the reps. And this is something that our customers were really excited about, because the notion of an SDR and an account executive truly owning their business in totality and being able to self-assist, self-coach, not exactly self-manage, but essentially help the manager out when the manager's not with them, could be really impactful. And so the AI could speak to the rep in a very thoughtful, supportive, positive, positive yet accountable way of coaching. And so that was something that we realized as well. And then the last thing, one of the last things that we realized was that it, being able to make sales coaching and proactive sales management a daily habit, right? So it's not, this isn't an exercise where you dive into a bunch of dashboards on a Sunday and try to figure out what's going on, such that you can do coaching the next day in your sales team meeting, but instead something that could be woven into the day-to-day operating rhythm of a manager, of a rep coaching themselves as a leader, et cetera, et cetera. So these were all things that we were able to ship over the last quarter, and we were really excited about it. But ultimately, the measure of success is in the form of our customers, and so we wanted to see how our customers have liked it. And so the net of that is that our customers really love it. Um, Leaders really love it because they're able to, like, one of the big things that leaders really ask us for is, hey, can you help my managers uh, consistently manage and have a consistent playbook to make sure that they're proactively managing. And oftentimes leaders have gone through their career and have developed the ability to be data-driven managers using legacy analytics solutions like BIs and what have you, but then they realize that oftentimes their junior and mid-level managers don't have this. So providing those guideposts to those managers, in this case, woman, Jennifer Arroyo, who's the director of sales development at Staffbase. I think she has like 3 or 4 SDR managers under her. That's something that was really powerful and exciting for CROs, VPs of sales ops, VPs of sales, et cetera. Enablement loves this as well, because they wish they could be spending their time sitting side by side with these managers and with these reps, kind of showing them what's happening with their performance. But the reality is like, ain't nobody got time for that, because the number of enablement people in an organization is definitely not growing and potentially declining at this point. And revenue operations loves this as well, insofar as they have historically been in the business of infusing data-driven behavior into management, leadership, et cetera. And so again, like them, they don't really have the time to sit side by side to do the interpretation of these metrics for managers. And so the notion of something that can do that interpretation of those metrics, can synthesize the outcomes and provide recommended actions to managers, is something that's is a blessing to them. What we've seen across our customer base is that as Sales Coach has gotten smarter and smarter, the proportion of users who say, "Hey, this was helpful," because on every single Sales Coach recommendation, was this helpful? Was this not helpful? This has gotten higher and higher, and so at this point, we're above 90%, of 90% batting average there. The biggest thing that we were excited about, and this kind of goes to the like what Atrium's goal is in the market, is to help managers and leaders and reps manage by metric, manage themselves, manage, and improve their performance. And so we look at that. The way that we hold ourselves accountable to that is by looking at usage within Atrium, because if people are not using the tool the same way that people don't log into dashboards and they don't look at Tableau walls of charts or what have you, and so then they just go back to managing by deal or managing by gut. What was really exciting with us is we saw a doubling of usage, of Atrium usage, based on people who had used Sales Coach. And so that told us that we were breaking down that barrier and democratizing the ability for managers to consume and interpret this data and use that information to drive behavioral change, rep behavioral change, um, in a way that previously was not possible. Um, the and then the second thing that we're like, while customer feedback is fantastic and ultimately the way that we measure ourselves, the analyst community has been really excited about what we're up to as well. Specifically, our friends over at Gartner, named Atrium and Sales Coach a cool vendor in generative AI for sales. I think that there were like 4 or 5 that were named, and we were the only one that was focused on the managerial side of things. And I think what the analyst community, what the Gartners and the Forresters, et cetera, have seen for a long time is, they've seen the promise of democratizing access to data-driven management, but they've also seen the reality of more charts and graphs that less analytical, less metrical sales managers and so forth have struggled to really put into action. And so they saw this as kind of finally fulfilling the promise of allowing these managers and leaders and even reps individually themselves to be able to manage by metric. And so that's what's been happening over the last bit. And so now what I'd like to do is change gears a little bit and talk about what's next, and essentially what we've been cooking in the kitchen for the last 60 or 90 days there. And so before we kind of get into that, I think an important thing for folks to kind of realize is that there's actually this cycle of sales coaching or sales management, and really what it goes like is this is like, first you have to synthesize and interpret what's going on. Then as a manager or a leader, you have to provide a recommendation, you have to provide a prescription, um, and understand what it is that's going on, and then you actually have to do the management, right? As the one of my favorite phrases is the CRO of SalesLoft has this great this great phrase, like, we're not here to admire a problem. So even if we identify a problem, and even if we have an idea of how we might go about solving that, if we don't take the managerial action, if we don't have the rep conversation, if we don't direct the rep to do something or direct the manager to do something, it's kind of for naught. Right? But if we do these three things right here, then ideally performance will improve, at which point then we loop back again, because then we look for like the next problem, right, to tackle. And so that was something that was kind of missing with Sales Coach, was this notion of the action. We were doing a great job of synthesis, we were doing a great job of recommendation, but even then, that taking the action can oftentimes kind of catch managers up. And so that's where Sales Coach Next Steps come from. So this is our new kind of third leg of the stool, if you will. Sales Coach Next Steps is all about turning these insights, these recommendations, excuse me, these synthesized insights and recommendations into concrete next managerial actions here, and generating those managerial actions for managers. Right now, what that looks like, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because Jason's going to be doing his demo for everybody. We've started with 3 types of next steps that are kind of correlated to the things that managers really ought to be doing. Step 1 is high fives, the ability to give a data-based high five to a rep, to a team, to a larger organization, et cetera, rooted in the data in question. The second action is kind of the flip side of that. It's a coaching communication, where it's starting with positivity, of course, because we are managing humans who have feelings and emotions here. But it's saying, hey, this is a problem that I think we need to solve here, that based on the information or based on the metrics that we're seeing right here, here's the action I would like you to take. And then the last step here, or the last type of coaching next step, is custom enablement plans. And so where this shows up is right here in the upper right-hand corner of the Sales Coach UI. And what it does is it takes these insights, right, the Sales Coach insights, and then generates the coaching action from that. So in this case, this is the high five email here. Both rep facing and then also team facing there. This is being rooted in the data. It's not just being made up like, hey, Bobby, you're doing a great job. It's, hey, you're doing a great job because I noticed that your customer facing meeting activity is 40% higher than your peers. Let me give you a fist bump, sent via email or sent via Slack, and that's why. The second piece of this is the coaching communications. Again, this is using the data that's present in Atrium in order to derive what the biggest area of improvement for that given rep might be, and then providing recommendations on this. This is something that managers oftentimes struggle with. right? Being able to put into words exactly what that crucial conversation ought to look like. And so it can block managers from actually taking the time to do that. Lastly is our enablement programs here. So taking the data that's present in Atrium, looking at what the biggest area for improvement might be there, and then generating a custom enablement plan, characterizing why it's important, which reps we might want to focus on there, and then providing the kind of the recommended next steps for doing that enablement. So Jason's going to get more in depth on that. Um, the other thing too is that all of this is rep facing as well. So all of those actions that we were talking about also speaks to the reps as well. So the same way that sales coach speaks to the rep and kind of tells them what's going on from a synthesis and a recommendation standpoint, the same thing is being done with respect to those next steps and the ability. They don't send themselves an email. We call it like a pep talk and a coaching chat. But the idea there is the ability for a rep to be able, when they're not with their manager, to be able to get a set of recommendations for themselves and self-manage as appropriate there. The last thing I wanted to cover here before we get into our demo is this notion of synthesis and recommendation across the entire organization, right? And so this was something that in the last quarter or so, we had been focused on really nailing our core use case, which is helping those frontline managers and second level managers be able to understand what was going on from a synthesis and recommendation standpoint. We've now added that across the entire organization. So if you're an organization that has 100 sellers or 200 sellers, as a VP of sales operations or a CRO, what you want to be able to understand is what's going on across my entire org. What themes are present? Like, are we having a broad pipe gen problem? Are we having a broad degradation in win rates? Are we having a broad degradation in average selling price? Where like which teams are having these issues, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. So not going to go too in depth there because we're going to have Jason do our handy dandy demo here. Jason, I'm going to go ahead and pass screen share to you there. I think I just unshared. You able to share your screen?
Let's see. Success. All right. Thanks, Pete. Hi, everyone. All right. So we're going to walk through three things today that Pete alluded to in the slides. So first off, we're going to walk through all the next steps functionality that we built. As Pete said, it's really about bridging the gap between synthesis and action. Sales Coach to date has been awesome for managers to synthesize and to make recommendations. But the next step is to really get those managers to take action in the product. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Then I'm going to show you the big steps that we've taken for Sales Coach to talk directly to the rep themselves, so the rep can self-manage, but if not self-manage, at least start to see the data and understanding to kind of warm themselves up for the conversations that the managers are going to have with them. And then three, we're going to walk through the pretty significant advance we've made to have Sales Coach help leaders look at themes across the organization and across teams. And so what I'm looking at here, I am in a staging and test environment to show you guys this demo, but I'm demoing here, I believe, a first level AE manager. And so what has been the case to date is that most of our users now, aren't touching a lot of the other functionality in Atrium. They're going directly to the Sales Coach, right? And they're just launching the Sales Coach for their team. So in this case, I'm Flint Hart, and this is my team of AEs. And so as Pete said, what the Sales Coach does is it takes all of the insights in Atrium, right? So for my team and for each of my reps, how they're doing against their goals, right? How they're doing against themselves over time, regardless of whether they have a goal, how they're doing against their peers, or how my team's doing against its peers. There's a lot of data here, right? And so the AI is great at synthesizing that data and saying, hey, manager, here are the shout outs for your team. Here's what's going really well, doing really well on ASP and on your meetings, right? Here are some top 3 items for coaching across your team. Here's a plan of action for each of those items. And here you need to keep an eye out on. Here's who's struggling, right, on the rep level. Here are those people you want to encourage. And hopefully you guys have seen this from our last AI day or in the product itself. And this is great from a synthesis perspective and from a recommended actions perspective. We want to bridge that gap. And now as a manager, I want to take action. And so I'm going to walk you through the first 3 actions that we have in the platform. We will obviously be adding more on top of that. But what is one thing that I as a manager might want to do? Well, it's Thursday. Maybe what I want to do is give everyone a high five as they're coming towards the end of the week. So I can go over here here to my next steps, and I can say I want to go send a high five email. And so what the AI is doing here is very similar to what the base sales coach report is doing. It's taking all of those insights across this team and across each of the reps, and it's generating a fairly short email that I can send out to my team to say, here's what's going really well across the team and for each individual. So you can see it's calling out for the team that we're doing a really good job on ASP, for new business opportunities. It's also calling out some individuals on the team, like Runkle Stan here, or Dejan has a great conversion rate from qualified. Good job, Dejan, right? And now if I want to, I can go in and I could just send that email directly, but I'm less likely to do that. Maybe I'm going to go in here and I'm like, well, celebrating our success and achievements is a little stiff, so I'm going to just go like this, or I'm going to go down here, and this happens to me a lot. Let's keep redefining our limits and achieving new heights. That's how Pete talks. It's not how I talk. So I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to send off that email. I can save it. I can come back to it, but now I can send it. And what that did is that just went from me to anyone I wanted to on the team, right? Great. But my number one job as a manager is not only to send kudos, right? It's also to be constructive and help the team get better, right? So maybe what I actually want to do is I want to send a coaching email to my team. Very similar process here. We're using all of those insights that Atrium's feeding in to the LLM and the AI, doing all similar positive stuff, but also saying to the team, hey, despite these positives, there's some stuff we need to work on, right? In this case, our pipeline owned value and pipeline value set to close are trailing behind. So if I actually went over here, I think what we'd find is, yeah, there you go. So this team, new opportunities owned, going the wrong direction,
Oopsie.
right? Let's see, the pipe set to close. Yeah, where is it? There you go. Yeah, this team has
Uh-oh.
less pipe closing this quarter than other teams. Maybe they haven't been managing the top and the middle of the funnel as well as they should be, right? So what am I going to do about that? I'm going to send this email. Maybe, again, I'm going to customize it. Maybe I'm going to add some anecdotes. Maybe I'm going to pull in some of these specific data points that the AI chose not to in this case. I can edit. I can send it off. So those are two really important actions that I want to be doing, right? I want to be giving high fives, but I also want to be coaching. I want to do that directly to my team in their inbox or coming soon into Slack. What else might I want to do? Well, obviously, I want to be thinking about what exact actions I'm going to take. And as Pete said, we now are generating these enablement plans. And what the enablement plan is doing is it's looking across the team and it's saying, what's the most pervasive pattern that is not great that we want to improve on in the team? And in this case, it's pipe generation. Yep, that makes sense, right? That checks out. Like this, new opportunities owned going down for this team. Where's pipeline owned? Pipeline owned lower than other teams. Pipeline by close date lower than other teams. Yeah, it turns out this team may have done well last quarter, but they're going to struggle this quarter or in Q+1 if they don't get on top of pipe generation, right? So the sales enablement program is, making that suggestion. It's talking a little bit about why this is important. I think everyone on this call knows why pipe generation is important, but if it had picked some other metrics, maybe the rep is not clear why that matters. So it's going to tell them. And then it's going to talk about which reps we're going to focus on. Our friend Dejan is still kicking butt, so maybe they're the template for how to do a good job here. And then it's going to talk about different steps that we can do from an enablement perspective. So you can imagine me using this in a team meeting or like a specific enablement meeting to talk about, yeah, we're going to go through some prospecting techniques, we're going to do some pipe reviews, we're going to establish better KPIs, right? So that's some of the next step actions that I can take at a team level. But of course, I don't want to only be working at a team level. As a manager, I want to work rep by rep, right? And so what you can do up here in this little carousel is I can now just rotate through my team. So Dejan's on my team. We've already
Dijon,
talked about Dejan
our
a
boy.
little bit. And so Dejan's doing great. So I'm just going to skip them, right? No, I'm not going to skip them, right? I'm still going to send them a high
Mm.
five email, or maybe if you're me, I'm still going to try to find some edge out with Dejan to see what's going on. Okay, so we know Dejan's kicking butt on meetings. We know that Dejan's doing well on win rate. Okay, so Dejan's got fewer opportunities in the trailing 30 days. We knew that because the team does, and it turns out that Dejan does as
Mm.
well. And then also there's more untouched business ops. Okay, so that's interesting, right? So if I go down here, yeah, sure enough, like
Mm.
Dejan has 37 ops that they haven't touched in 30 days. So
Mm.
it's awesome that they're kicking butt right now, but maybe in forward 90 days, that's going to change because they're not on top of their pipe, right? And so as you can imagine, it's really easy for a lot of managers to give high fives. It's a little bit harder, right, to give that constructive feedback. And so what the sales coach is doing is giving you the data, embedding it in the email, and letting you start that conversation with data. So it's a lot easier for managers to do that. So again, I can edit this email if I want to. I could CC, someone else on the team, maybe a sales enablement person, et cetera, and then I can send off that email. Let's just keep going and look at a couple other examples here. So now I'm on to apparently Grand Councilwoman. So Grand Councilwoman, it looks like, is struggling a lot more than Dejan was. And so maybe on Grand Councilwoman, I'm really focused on how do I improve performance here, and maybe I can generate that enablement program. Unlike at the team level, right, where it was looking against the themes across the team, at the rep level, the AI is laser focused on Grand Councilwoman. What is the number one thing I think we should try to change right now and or try to make better? And in this case, it's saying pipeline hygiene and management. So what is that
Mm.
looking at? Again, untouched business ops, stuck up. So I'm guessing if we go down here, um, sure enough,
Mm.
stuck ops higher than peers, untouched ops higher than peers. And so as you know, just from the previous one, why is this important, Grand Councilwoman? And then what are the suggested steps that we're going to work on together as a team? You can kind of already see where this is going to go from a roadmap perspective for us on Sales Coach. Is I don't want to just copy this to clipboard. Coming soon, I'll be able to send this email off as well. That will come in the next week or two. And then do I want to now create streams for each of these enablement steps where I'm working in Atrium with a Grand Councilwoman on each of these steps? And let's just do one more because I think it's an important motion here as a manager that I'm going through each of my reps and I'm going to take action. So Grunkle Stan, I think I think we haven't looked at the coaching email here for someone that actually is struggling. It's very similar to what it was for that person that was really crushing it. But in this case, there's more going on. So we're still going to lead with positivity, right? The AI is going to help the manager realize that that's a really good idea, and then focusing out that, yeah, the sales cycle is a bit longer here. And in this case, like, it's pretty interesting, right? Like, this rep is struggling in POC, right? They have 63% more days in POC than their peers. So I know what I'm going to work with this rep on. And so I'm probably going to edit this email and talk a lot more about this specific content, and maybe say, hey, let's get together in a one-on-one and let's walk through some of your deals that have been in POC and why they've taken so much longer than everyone else. But the key point here is the AI is giving me that lift as a manager who maybe I'm a first time manager, or maybe I'm not, but I'm just uncomfortable having that tough conversation. The goal here is to use this data and embed it in the email so there's a nice starting point. So that's next steps for the team. And then I want to key on something I just said, which is that we're trying to help managers have those conversations that maybe are less comfortable but are super, super important in the organization. One way that we can help with that and make that lower friction is to have that conversation already with the rep directly, right? So if I'm Grunkle Stan, sorry, I'm gonna giggle a little bit as I go through these names. Grunkle Stan can come into the platform as well, right? The reps are in Atrium, and much like the managers, they're skipping directly to the sales coach, right? And they're going in here, and now what the sales coach is doing is it's talking directly to this rep, right? And it's doing so in a similar fashion where it's starting with the good stuff. Hey, you're rocking the meetings. Thank you, AI. It's very colloquial. And what's going on? Your calendar's filled up, which is awesome. Your win rate's looking really good, right? And then it's going into those coaching topics. You need to improve your sales cycle time. Again, talking about that POC stage. In this case, the AI is doing a good job of pulling in the data. One side point that I'll make to everyone, if you don't like the way the AI wrote something, hit this regenerate button down here and it'll try again and try to pull in some more of that data. If you want a more data focused email, you can obviously also edit the emails if you want to. But improve your sales cycle time, enhance your pipeline management, boost those new business opportunities, talking about how to do more prospecting, right? And the reason I'm showing you this is because it's going to make the manager's job a lot easier if Atrium is talking directly to Stan and having that conversation ahead of time, getting them used to the data, see that data ahead of time. Look, in an ideal world, the rep self-corrects, obviously, but that maybe is not the most realistic thing. But now when this rep gets that email from their boss, right, they already know some of this data, they're used to it, they've been looking at it, and they're more open to working on it. So that's what's going on with talking to the rep directly. I think, as Pete mentioned, I can do different versions of this if I want to as a rep. Like, I'm like, hey, if I'm depressed about this, I can have a pep talk, right?
So pep
Which is
talk.
just going to be, yeah. I have feathers in my cap, people. So I can get pumped up by the AI if I want to. So that's what we're doing with talking to the rep directly. On our roadmap, what y'all are going to see is a lot more investment in how the AI can help manage the rep directly, right? Like, as an example, think about how are we going to work with Uncle Stan on their goals midway through the week, midway through the month, midway through the quarter. You know, as a manager, what you're going is you're tapping people on the shoulder, you're giving high fives, you're giving encouragement, you're trying to push them a little bit more. That is something that with the data that Atrium has and the AI intelligence, we can start to automate, right, and really help streamline that process. Um, so that's number two, that's talking to the reps directly. And the third thing I'll show you is we've tried to take a really big step forward in what our leaders can do with Sales Coach. Because everything we've talked about to date has been about individual reps and about teams with small number of reps. And if you're the CRO, it's not that you don't care about those reps, but you're really focused at the team level or at the theme level. And so now they can go in here and they can launch Sales Coach, and their Sales Coach options look a little different. They could jump into any team in the organization, right? They could do custom groups, but they can also look at like all the SDRs, or in this case, let's do all the sellers. And so what we've done is we've come much higher level, right? And we're doing analysis across all of those teams, right? What are the themes, what's working, what's not working, and presenting that up to the CRO. So on the left side, very similar, right? It's all the insights, but of course, as you know, Atrium does insights not just at the rep level, but the team level and the team of team levels, all the way up. You can see for each team what's going on. Self anomalies, you versus these teams versus themselves historically, these teams versus other teams, right? Or these teams versus their goals. The right side, very similar to what we were doing from the rep, is synthesizing all that data and coming up with recommendations, but it's doing it at like the theme level, like
Hmm.
across the board, across these 10 or so teams,
It's
right?
a lot of teams.
There's a lot of teams and a lot of stuck ops apparently. So we got Vincenzo, Bucky, headless, man, headless.
Good
Um,
old headless team.
so stuck ops, longer date sales cycles elongating as a,
Mm,
as a theme across the organization. Win rates are going down. Good news, right? Actually, this is actually quite interesting. Across this team, they are doing better
mm,
with new opportunities. So when we were at that team level, right, that very specific team we called out, there was really this focus on, man, new pipeline, y'all. But at the org level, this is actually less of a problem, right? And we are seeing higher pipeline value. It's more about the org level, about these stuck opportunities, not moving things along fast enough, velocity issues. So themes to celebrate, recommended plans of action, teams to keep an eye on, teams to celebrate. And you know, the CRO doesn't have to stay at this level, or the VP of sales. They can go in and say, okay, well, I see that Vincenzo has a problem. And so for each of these teams, they can dive in and run a team specific performance analysis. I think in this case, Vincenzo is still a second or third level manager, right? So, but it's going to rinse and repeat, right? The insights of that specific part of the org on the left, the shout outs, the coaching. In this case, Vincenzo has at least 3 teams, right? On the right. And if you want to, you can dive deeper and deeper. I can just keep on going. I can go into Bucky's team, and eventually I can go down to the individuals. But that's not what we expect a leader to do. What we expect a leader to do is look at those themes, look at the teams, and then queue up conversations with those teams. And if they want to, they can send those same high five coaching or generated enablement plan, or probably more likely, they're going to use this data, maybe generate that enablement plan and queue off a conversation with the manager of that team to see what they want to do next. So that's what I had to show you today. Hopefully you're as excited about it as we are. The sales coach has done a phenomenal job of synthesizing and making recommended actions. And that was very obvious in the user excitement we've seen and the usage we've seen. But really, if we're going to lock this into a daily pattern of behavior for all of our users, both the managers and the reps, and then hopefully the leaders, we really needed to bridge the gap towards action. And so that's the direction that we're going in. What you can expect to see next, you'll expect to see more actions, but you'll also expect to see more work done at the individual talking to the rep directly level. And then we're also experimenting with some cool stuff about not just managing the human, but also starting to tell you some insights about each deal, which is something that we can do a pretty neat job with the Atrium data. So that's what I had. I'm going to pass it back to Pete here. And he can close off. And maybe I haven't been looking if we have questions, so that might be another thing to try.
Excellent. Well, Jason, that was a jam-packed demo. Well done, well executed. Appreciate that. Yes. So I think kind of in closing here, we'll go back to our Hall of Mirrors there. Um, we're very excited about this, and I think this is kind of one of the reasons why Gartner kind of called this out with respect to us is, Atrium for a really long time. We've been working on this for about 5 years or so. We've been really focused on the manager, and I think a lot of folks have kind of been identifying how the digital selling market has been pretty consolidating right now. So everybody's kind of adding different functionalities. Most of those things are rep facing, right? So like organizations that have started very call recording centric have added things like deal inspection or forecasting of those deals and what have you. Or organizations that have been more sales engagement focused have then added conversational intelligence or deal inspection, or organizations that have been very forecasting centric are now adding conversation intelligence and kind of and sales engagement functionality. And kind of what we've been doing over in Atrium Land, that's all really powerful. And like all of our customers that we work with, they use a lot of these other digital selling solutions, digital selling suites, and what have you. But really, what we're just laser focused on is like helping organizations improve performance of their teams, their reps, their managers, their teams through better management, through better data driven management. And that's why we're just like narrowly focused on all of those sales manager and leader focused functionality there. Historically, that's been more around metrics and goal tracking, kind of statistics there. And like that's where all of our AI investment has been focused very heavily on analysis and interpretation, which was kind of the first kind of thing that we invested in with Sales Coach there. And then, of course, now as Jason so nicely demoed for us, all that's next steps functionality. And so, we think that managers really matter. This is something that managers and leaders matter, and excellence in management is a hallmark of a modern sales organization. And importantly, that's not like handing people a bunch of dashboards and saying, have fun, figure it out. That's not really the crux. That's not how you're going to get world-class sales management going on. In fact, what we like to say is like, hey, let's get rid of this frustrating dashboard diving. Let's instead give everybody their AI sales management helper at the manager level, at the rep level, at the leader level, et cetera. So that's what we're really excited about. Kind of two things I'd leave everybody with here. One, Jason gave a pretty cool demo there, but the bigger thing is like you can actually see this on your own CRM data. You can get a deeper demo with any of our account executives. They're huge sales nerds. They love to talk about sales coaching and performance and data-driven sales management. We'll send more information out on that front, but I think we'll just drop into the chat here if you want to go ahead and sign up for your own Atrium account or request a demo. You're more than welcome to do that. And then the second thing is I'm actually here in New York right now. Jason is in San Francisco. I flew out to New York to meet with a bunch of our customers out here, but I'm also hosting a happy hour here this evening in Midtown at the Parlor Room. We'd love to see you at 5:30. I think we have at this point, we have north of 100 RSVPs for sales managers, sales leaders here in the New York City area. We'd love to see you. So we're going to drop a link here in the chat for folks to register on that front, but just come on by if you like. It's at the Parlor Room. It looks very delightful. I was checking it out on Yelp earlier. So that's pretty much all it is, all that we have to cover here today. So really pumped to see everybody here. I think that was pretty much everything we need to cover here. We had some questions that we covered already. So, without any kind of further ado, hopefully we can see you guys for the people who are in the New York City area, we want to see you tonight at the happy hour. Really excited about that. And then for folks who can't make it, we'll have a drink for you, but we'd love to show you the sales coach functionality live and direct. So, go ahead and raise your hand and we'd love to kind of give you a walkthrough of that. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we'll see you online. Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, everyone.